Hello and welcome to Edupedia World. It's now time that we take a look at cameras more in depth here in Cinema 4D. So, in order to create a camera, you basically just click up here and you get all these options. So, the camera is just a simple camera. Target camera is basically a camera that has a target. You can make a target camera out of a normal camera as well. A 3D camera, that's very advanced. I won't be using that. A motion camera and a camera crane. Let's just start by creating a normal camera, and you will see it over here in the objects panel. So right now, if we pan around or orbit around, you'll see the camera sitting here in 3D space, just floating around. If we press this little arrow or crosshair, we are able to look through the camera, and wherever we point ourselves, the camera basically moves with us. So if we go over here, click on this again, it will go back to the position that the camera, or this standard camera that I'm in right now, was, and we are looking at our camera again. If we go back, we can change the angle of the camera to maybe over here, go out, and our camera is now over here. Let's always look through our camera from now on. So as you can see, I've got a simple scene with our crane and our two lights. I will find a nice spot right here and do a quick render. So I will, instead of just doing Ctrl R or pressing this button to render the whole frame, I will use hold this down and then just do render region. That way I can just pick a little bit of the model, so I don't have to render everything. This just gives me an idea of how everything looks, because I don't want to spend all your time looking at my computer rendering. So as you can see, this is how everything looks, and it looks pretty alright. Let's go into the camera settings and start changing them around. So let's first of all change the focal length to something like 50. It just means we are more zoomed in. You're also able to change something like offset and all that stuff. Let us try to change the focus distance. So I want to find some part of this crane that I want to be in focus. So if I just place my camera, like let's say right here, I can click on this pick with this little mouse icon, and then I can just click on my model. Oh, what? Okay, I have to choose this tool. Click right here, click on my model, and it will have set the focus length. If we go out here, we can actually see that this is our focus distance, and it has been set right where we pointed or clicked. So if we render, this will now be in focus, but since we don't have any depth of field or anything turned on, we won't actually see a difference. So if we were to go into this physical tab, you can see we are able to change things like only the shutter speed. And why are we only able to change this few options in our camera settings? Well, that is because we are using a standard camera instead of a physical camera or the standard renderer. I will show you what that I mean. So click on this icon right here, and that will open the render settings. If you look here where it says renderer, we are using the standard renderer. If I click this button, I can choose physical renderer. I'll just click right here, and you can see we get another option, physical. And if we look down here, then all of our options have now been enabled. So there are a few things to keep in mind. We can see we've got our sampler. It has been set to adaptive. I'll show you the difference. And then the quality has been set to low, and that's just the default quality. when you're just doing preview renders, it's nice to have it at low, but when you're doing your final render, you can set it to high to get amazing quality. Another thing to notice is that I have ambient occlusion turned on. So you can go into effect, and if this wasn't added already, it would be right here at the top, ambient occlusion. I'll remove that. Ambient occlusion, I like to add a bit of contrast just to make it more noticeable, so 20%. And this is basically our render settings for this camera. So if you have used a real camera, you will know some of these options. We've got the f-stop, that is basically your aperture. I will choose something like f4, and the exposure, I will leave that at if I choose this, then I'll be able to choose it myself. I'll just leave it unticked and it will do it all on its own. So you can see you've got something like vignette, lens distortion. All this is not really necessary for this. It's nice to have these if you are doing something like CG for video, and then you can add the lens distortion and vignette to like match the camera, but we don't have that in this shot. We can go into details. There's nothing right here. It's actually all set up right now. So as you remember, we placed this little null object out here in the arm, and this will be where it's going to focus. So if we just move in like this, we are pretty close to this, but this part here in the back is pretty far away. That means if we render, we are actually going to get some depth of field. Let's try to maybe set the f-stop to 2.8, and we are in the ambient occlusion. Depth of field is turned on, and let's just make sure. Yes, here's the problem. I didn't set this null as my target, focus object. So as you remember, I have the object right here. I want the camera to always focus at that object, so I can pull it and place it in the focus object. That way, when I render right now, we will get some proper depth of field. Try and move in a bit closer and render. And as you can see right now, the background is all blurred out like that, and the stuff here in front is all in focus. So it's actually acting like a real camera. And if you're doing like realistic renders, then motion blur is very nice to make it all look realistic. So I don't know if you remember, but we have it set at the low sample quality in our render settings, and that basically means that we are gonna get some grainy. The blurred parts aren't going to be that smooth. They're going to be very grainy, as you see right here. So if we were to go into these settings, and instead of having set at low, we can maybe try and set it at high, and then using this to just render this part here in the back. And it's going to take a lot longer time because it has to calculate that much more, but in the end you're going to get a much nicer and way more realistic image. So as you can see right now, it has completed the rendering of this first little pixel, or whatever we can call it, and you can see the reflection is much more smooth. Right there, it is very nice. I'll just give it a few seconds to render this part over here so we can see what difference it has made. We can already see that it has made a big difference, and we can also see that it has made a very large difference in the render speed. but since it's basically simulating the real world, it has to take a lot of time because the real world is very complicated. Just keep that in mind. So as you can see right now, this looks very nice, and the render is just finishing off right here. There we go. So, oh, there's a bit more. I won't wait for that, but as you can see, by increasing the sample quality, you can get a lot more quality. Another thing you can do is instead of having it set at adaptive, you can change it to something like progressive. And here, the sampling quality and all this stuff does not matter. This basically starts rendering the picture and then stops when you are done. So what I mean by that, just try doing Control R, and right now we see the computer basically going through. We can see right here it's on pass number 5. It's basically just going through, refining the picture, or always going through the picture like this, making it better all the time. And this is a very quick way to get a cool representation of your pictures. You can see right now it has only spent 20 seconds, and we have also already got a very good idea of how our design is looking. So you can see this front part is very sharp. There's a bit of grain in the shadows, but it already looks very nice. And this is a very powerful tool for doing look development. So I can just go out here, render, and in a few seconds I've got a great idea of what my model looks like. Try and go into our camera settings, maybe putting it at 80 millimeters like this, and changing. Let's try and actually just mess around with these. So let's add something like, I don't know if this is a lot, 8% of lens distortion. Let's try and really add a lot. I'll try and put it out here to the side, and as you can see, what it does is that it like distorts the image, and this is a known problem with lenses, that it distorts the image. And using this option you can recreate that in 3D, and you can see it's doing it very quickly. I'll just put it back to 0, and this basically looks pretty nice. So right now we have got only one camera. I will just delete that really quickly, and I will show you guys how you can create a morphing camera, because that's very useful when doing something like an animation. So I want to create an animation that goes past the camera, like looks up here, looks down here, and looks up here again. So this can be described by 3 positions: one position here, one position here, one position here. And let's just look from this angle, click on the camera, and it has created one camera in this position. We can then turn our viewer, look from this position, click to create a new camera, look from the 3rd position, or maybe we only want 2, let's just do 3, and we can even add a 4th or 6th or 7th, or however many you want. Let's just keep it pretty simple. You can see it gets very messy with all these things right here. We will go through all the cameras, and we will add this null to the focus object. They will now all be focused on that point. We can move it around, and you can see they will adapt. It's pretty cool. So we've now got these 3 camera positions. They aren't anything in themselves, they aren't morphing or anything, but we can make them morph. So if you select them all by just shift clicking to select, we can click and drag, and then you'll see this camera morph has been highlighted, or none grayed out. So we can just select this, and we will see we've now got a morphing camera. You can see the red line is the line that's going to pass through. We can even take these cameras and go into refine the path that the morphing camera is going through, and that way you can easily get some cool animation that would take a long time to do with just animating a single camera. So just move this a bit closer, a bit too far away. I'm looking at this like path. We can now look through the morphing camera instead, and if we select the morphing camera and go to the camera morph option, you'll see we've got this option that's called blend. And if we start dragging this, you'll see that I'm going to move around this object right here, like that. There are some other options. I'm not going to go through them right now because this could be almost a tutorial on itself, but it's basically pretty cool. Add a stabilization object. Let's just clear that. I will do a quick animation, and we can basically see what we've got. I will go into animation later on, so don't worry guys. This is just to show off our video. So in the next video we'll be taking a look at how we can render this out to a image sequence.
Thank you for watching Edupedia World. Stay tuned for more videos.